So another thing, what's in it for them? Definitely for us as EY peers, the support of sponsors is always highly appreciated, because without them, a lot of sessions wouldn't be able to fly and a lot of things wouldn't be able to get done. But for them, what do they gain from giving money, time, and products to a youth organization? Most of the time, it acts as kind of an exchange. So they will give us their money and their products in exchange of promotion of those products and services. And also for them, it's a great way to reach target audiences. So for example, if you have a company that's selling, let me just think of something relevant, stationery, and the entire session is made up of university students, pretty good target audience for them. Then there's also the media exposure and the outreach of external audiences, because people, for example, session's Instagram page isn't just made up of people attending the session, it's also people outside the session who might be other EY peers or just people who are interested in that specific event. So getting media coverage for that is excellent for them, because that means they get a promotion that reaches even more people outside the event. But beyond that, it's also an opportunity for them to network and also meet young citizens that could be the leaders of tomorrow. I know that's repeated a lot in EYP circles, but a lot of sponsors and partners actually do believe that, and they also find this opportunity to engage with us really important. So what I was going to say is, for sponsors and partnerships, what we do is we form mutually beneficial relationships, which is what Ali covered in his PR module. So essentially, they agree to provide us a specific value, and we agree to give them a specific value, so exposure, outreach, that kind of thing, and then they give us their own kind of value, so money, expertise, and products. However, the thing is, over the years, sponsorships have evolved into something a lot more complicated and a lot more demanding, especially for high-level events, such as national sessions and international sessions, which kind of puts a lot of pressure on the organizing team and also the media teams involved. So what used to be a single logo printed on the session issue or in the resolution booklet has now become multi-step campaigns on social media and shout outs and individual posts. So that puts both the media team and the organizing team in kind of a tight spot where they need to find the right balance, where you honor your promise to sponsors, but also you do not commercialize the event, which would be counterintuitive in a non-governmental organization event. So this brings us to the main issue that we want to address here. How can we establish clear communications with key stakeholders, and how do we manage their expectations? And also, what does this have to do with media? So media teams, I'm not sure how many of you have participated in media scenes. Those who have will definitely have been exposed to this, especially in national and international events. They are tasked with capturing, creating, editing, and sharing content, especially for sponsors and partners. And this can range from promotional images, from delegates holding products that the sponsors has offered, and posts where you give shout outs to the partners. And this kind of creates, well, this is where the organizers and the media team start to interact and create that kind of relationship where they need to communicate the needs the sponsor has to the media team. But yeah, in other words, media teams are instrumental when it comes to managing expectations and also delivering what is promised to the stakeholders. So here you can see the communication channels that are often taking place in an event. Communication in these cases is usually a three-way street. So you have the sponsors and the partners, the NC and organizing team, and the media leadership. Technically, it's a four-way street, but most of the time, the organizing team is only in contact with the NC is only in contact with the organizing team. So I haven't counted that in. So what you can see here is that the organizing team is pretty much the mediary. So they are discussing communication. They are discussing partnerships with the sponsors and the partners, the media team leadership, and the NC, which makes them central to this issue and also this topic. The problem here is that it can create a disconnect, especially between media teams and sponsors, who the media team is creating the content for these sponsors, and the organizing team, being in the middle, has to kind of communicate both the needs and the expectations, which, you know, sometimes this gets lost in translation and can create tension. So as the organizing team is in the middle of the process, the ball is usually in their court. The communication starts from there, unfortunately, because as some of you probably already know, organizing teams deal with a lot of things during the event. So having to deal with sponsors and partners as well is an additional kind of responsibility. Let me just see what else I have to say about this. Okay, so let's move on. So with communication, the most common issues is that if it's not done correctly or carried out properly, it can lead to unrealistic expectations and scope creep. Scope creep is essentially when the partner or sponsor has specific expectations that cannot be delivered, and this kind of can result in tension because they expect a specific outcome from us, and if that's not delivered, then this can cause issues. So common issues of miscommunication would be unrealistic expectations, over-promising and under-delivering, and undermining media team leadership's visions, goals, and so on, which further causes more tension. So how do we start to establish clear communication channels, and how do we deal with this kind of issues? The first step, I would say, is understanding how these issues are caused, and also why they are caused. So we have causes of miscommunication. There's assumptions, which is assuming that all parties involved have received adequate information and guidance about what needs to be done. So for example, say the head organizers want a media campaign for a sponsor, they would expect that the media team already knows this and that they are going to carry that out. However, if that's not actually communicated to the media team, that cannot happen unless the media team just decides to do it without being consulted. Then there is vagueness and ambiguity, which is not offering sufficient information and details. So for example, the sponsor might say, I want to see a post on social media, but they do not clarify what kind of post they want to see, how long the post should be, and also the content that they expect to see, which kind of leaves everything open and to interpretation. So the media team, as a result, might create something that the sponsor does not approve of, but which they also did not provide any guidance for. Then we have excess communication and over information. So offering way too many instructions, offering too much information that also can be very conflicting and misleading, which also leads to burying of key details and also over providing redundant information. So if a sponsor, for example, sends a 50-page brief of their company vision and company goals, then that leaves the media team with a huge document and a huge treasure trove of information. And that kind of creates, how do you say that? That kind of puts them in a rough spot, because that means what do you want me to convey? What do you want me to produce? How do I decide out of those 50 pages what needs to be communicated to the audience that you want me to reach? So those, I would say, are the main issues of miscommunication. And also, one more thing, lack of transparency. So transparency in every part, in every group, is important in the sense that, for example, if you're just giving directions to the media team without actually telling them who the content is for, what their aims are, and also what they expect, then that lack of transparency again leads to miscommunication. I've said that word so many times, I really do apologize. So how do we actually bridge this kind of gap, and how do we address it? Let's see. So how can we manage sponsor partner expectations and have good communication? So there's a few steps that can be taken. We have, well, the first thing we need to understand is that expectation management and communication are kind of interconnected. So the best way to start is actually to understand what our sponsors and what our partners expect, and also manage that. So if they expect a 3-day, 5-step campaign on our social media channels, then you also need to communicate with them and explain that that cannot be offered. But there's also other things like understanding what the media team can offer, which is the first point. So being aware what the media's resources are, and also how their time is distributed throughout the event, and also their objectives. So for example, if a head organizer goes to an editor and requests coverage of a specific sponsor, there must be both transparency, but also understanding of how this will work, but also what the media team can do. So what are the, so when I say resources, I mean like what kind of equipment are available? Do we have, for example, stuff like drones or video cameras that can capture really great video content? What's available to the media team to create and also produce what is expected for the sponsors? Once again, this is another part of transparency, being aware of what's going on both ends, meaning media teams and also sponsors, allows for there to be better communication. Yep, and also a flexibility. So while it's great for a sponsor to provide us with a detailed plan of what they expect and what they would like to see, telling them that you require flexibility because, for example, the media team is not a professional body that has all the capabilities to produce professional content. So asking of our sponsors to be more flexible with us and what we produce is always a really great idea. And it's also them needing to put some trust into the process and what we can offer. And then we have maintaining frequent communication. So that would be what we discussed before, being able to communicate with both the media team, the organizing team, and also the sponsors. So keeping people updated. So the editors should keep the organizing team updated on what's going on. And then the organizing team should also tell the sponsors what's going on. So creating that kind of constant communication, which also allows us to avoid misunderstandings and also under delivering results, because telling them what they should expect is also a great way to kind of ease the sponsors' expectations. And then also considering possible limitations. I'm going to talk about this a little bit further in the case study that is going to follow. Yeah, what I mean by possible limitations is, for example, does the sponsor have social media accounts? Are they active in those social media accounts? Does the media team have the resources to create the video content that the sponsor has requested? It's kind of like considering limitations from all parts. Let me just see. And then we have some more practical aspects. So it's not just like, you know, be a good team player, be a good communicator. You also need some more practical things that allow you to establish that kind of relationship with both the media team, the organizing team, and the sponsors. So, for example, you could have a spreadsheet where sponsor information, details, and expectations are included. And you could also make the media leadership part of that template, which allows them to include their notes, their comments, and suggestions. So, for example, if the organizers set up this spreadsheet, then the media team can look at the spreadsheet and understand what each sponsor expects and what they would like to see from the content that is created. And then also it's more interactive, it's more flexible in the sense that the editor can leave their notes and comments, and this allows to manage expectations better. Then we also have setting up meetings, and which allows, for example, media teams and organizing teams to discuss what's going on, the strategies, the plans, and also it kind of sets up both teams for success in the sense that they can collaborate together instead of just having one party expect the other party to just deliver content without having any kind of contribution to the process, which is extremely important. And then we also have templates in the sense that if organizing teams have a specific approach to sponsors, they could always create a template which can be sent to every sponsor, and then every sponsor can list what they can list stuff like their social media channels. They can list things like expectations. They can list things like their key messages and objectives as a company, as a partner to EYP, and all of that kind of allows the media team to also create something that represents the sponsor and the partner. We are going to move on to the case study. So I think it's, I've been talking for quite a while, and I feel like you guys need to see something as you need to see how all of this theory is kind of applied in real life, especially through EYP. And I have chosen the Powershifts project to show you how this theory is put into practice. So the Powershifts is, actually, I'm going to show you what the Powershifts is, but before I begin, why have I chosen the Powershifts project? Mainly because it's one of our most long-standing partnerships that EYP has with EON, which is the EON Foundation, which sponsors a lot of our events, and it's a great opportunity for most events to also bring in climate and energy related topics into their events. But yeah, when it comes to coverage and creating content and partnerships, I think the Powershifts project is an excellent example of how you can create a great communication and also manage expectations with partners and sponsors. So a little bit about the Powershifts project. It is a collaborative project between EYP and the Aeon Foundation, and it encourages innovative mindsets between young people, and also it encourages people to engage within their communities and talk and discuss about energy-related topics and policies. So this has been promoted through quite a few of our events, and it has been represented in really great ways. And actually, the international office sent me the communications briefing, which I'm going to be showing you a few parts. But what the communications briefing essentially is what I discussed before about using a kind of template to source our expectations and objectives for sponsors. Let me just see. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few examples of the Powershifts project. So we have one of the videos. I am showing you mostly what was shared by the Powershifts in their own Facebook page, instead of going through individual pages of EYP events. This was from the Digital Energy Forum and was a project done by a media team member. So as you can see, there's the energy topic integrated into this project. But one of the main things about Powershifts is that the partner does not wish for them to be the main focus of content created for them. So they want energy related topics, but they do not actually expect that the name of the foundation is dropped into every single project. It's more about actually engaging in these topics and having projects done on these topics, which is a really great way to actually naturally incorporate partners and sponsors within EYP content. We also have this project, which was from Young Europe Ambassadors. Again, this was shared through the European Youth Parliament page and then reshared by the Powershifts project. And we also have this from the European Youth Parliament Cyprus. Again, you can see how energy and climate topics are centralized here, but not necessarily kind of showcasing the partner itself. We have one more example here. And I would encourage you, if you want to look into this a bit further, to actually visit the page and understand how Powershifts is integrated into every event and how that is successfully done through the projects that the media team creates. So the key takeaways here is that there are clear outlines by the partner before every event takes place. So this gives the head organizers and the media team leaders time to plan ahead. So what the communications briefing that I received said, it had elements like key messages. So what needs to be communicated to internal and external audiences. It had requirements for every event. So one social media post, for example, for every event. Then there was things like the expectations of the partner. So the partner wants to see young people thinking about the future. So that's usually the main theme in the content created by media teams. And then also, I think for this project, it's an excellent way for national committees to also consider taking a similar approach, especially with long-standing partners. For example, EYP Cyprus does have long-standing partnerships, and by creating this kind of outlines and communication briefings, this kind of sets a brilliant foundation for future media teams that will attend EYP Cyprus events to still deliver the kind of similar quality results to this long-standing partner that we have. Let me see. So this is just one part from the Powershifts project communications briefing, which I was talking about. And as you can see, it outlines things like formalities, challenges, new ideas, and essentially, from what I know, the organizing teams receive this document, and then this can also be passed on to the media team leadership. And this immediately establishes both clear communication between organizing teams, sponsors, and media teams, but also sets expectations across all three again. So what I would say is clear communication is centralized through transparency and also through steps like this. But yes, so I've gone through everything quite fast. I hope you guys actually got something out of this. But I think that the key takeaway here is that in order to establish good communication, in order to establish our expectations for sponsors, and also establish the expectations sponsors have from us, is to first understand what each party wants from each other, and also take a very practical approach towards it through this kind of templates that we have here. I think Ali was going to talk a bit further on this.
Yeah. So I'll just add two kind of parts on top of Melina's. One is practical examples of cooperating with sponsors. And you can see me wonderfully ride a bike. Totally not low-key showing off how good I ride a bike. But these are like some concrete examples of how you could do or how sponsor coordination should work with an event. So here's a post that was made for Valencia, and this is by a company who rents bikes, right? So here's me riding a bike, and the photos kind of captioned with one of, like it says, Do You Bike, which is the name of the company, and it states that they're one of the patrons of the event. And then you can also see that they there's the capital Do Your Bike and Do You Bike, and that's like the tag. So that's how we were satisfying the patron by ensuring that there was a photo of someone riding it. And yeah, Melina, can you go to the next one?
Mm-hmm.
So here's another example. We got snacks from one company, it was a sponsor, like a product sponsor, and they were just giving us products. So here's totally not staged photo of someone passing the peanuts, where you can clearly see the brand and the packaging. So this is another example of fulfilling a sponsor's needs. They want social media exposure, and even if you're sometimes posing, you just do it to make sure that the needs are met. Can you go to the next one? Yeah, same deal. Someone totally enjoying their drink with the brand very clearly showing. Next one. So this is a slightly different take. So Mercedes, I think it was Mercedes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes was a sponsor of the event, and they had slightly different requirements, for example. So here you can see in the corner of the screen, Melina, could you zoom by any chance or not? No, it's okay. So in the corner, there's the Valencia logo as well as the Mercedes logo, and it says that it's the official supporter of Valencia 2019. So that was another requirement by the sponsor. They said that the photos must have a watermark that states that Mercedes is the official sponsor with this exact logo. So these were prerequisites that were communicated in briefs to the event, and we made sure that not only do we take photos of the products, but also that we fulfill these needs. So you can see a Mercedes car with the session logo. And yeah, next one. Yeah, here is another sample. So this isn't sponsors per se, but these are stakeholders. So this is a, I don't think it's a company. It was an organization that came over to give some trainings and some workshops. So part of the deal of them coming and giving workshops for free was that we make sure there's media output for them. So we took all these nice photos with the speakers and the participants listening, and we made sure to give it to them so that they could use it for their external communication. And actually, I think this photo was taken by Armin, so I put it next one. Yes, so working with sponsors and partners. I just realized also that I can't see anyone. Oh, well, now I know your names. So Melina talked about this a bit so far, but I just wanted to touch up on, actually, can you go to the next slide, Melina? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to touch up on the kind of the more theoretical aspects of it, to talk about, like, to think about stakeholders as important publics. So as you learned a second ago in the PR module, our stakeholders and our key publics are a main component of PR. So we want to make sure that when we're working with an event or with an NC even, that we know how to approach our stakeholders, and we know how to who to approach, most importantly, but also how to approach the different stakeholders. So doing a stakeholder analysis is important in this case, where you want to think about, you know, what are the key stakeholders in relation to our issue. So in this case, we're an international session. Our key issue, let's say one of our issues is that we need experts on a topic, right? So then we would identify who the key stakeholders are in the city or country we're doing the session in, to identify then who we're going to invite. Then you also want to think about their position and attitude. If you need an expert for your Powershifts project for climate change, you're probably not going to go and invite a climate denier or someone who's more skeptical. So you want to make sure that the person you're inviting, the partners, sponsors you're approaching, you know what their belief is about this. And even if it's a controversial belief, even if it's a contrary belief to yours, which can be the case, it should be the case maybe if you're inviting experts and you want a diversity of opinion, maybe not with climate change though, but you still want to know what they think, so then when you're approaching them, you can frame your communication as such. And also framing, we talked about earlier. You also want to think about how they benefit from this. So if we go back to the idea of PR being about building mutually beneficial relationships, it's the same idea. You want to build a mutually beneficial relationship. So you want to think about what they're going to benefit from this. If you're telling this company that they should give you free nuts, then you got to think about, what's this company going to get from giving us free nuts? Is it going to be exposure? Is it going to be getting all these photos of young people enjoying their nuts? That's probably the case for them, right? So this company wants to target their consumer target is young people who eat snacks, and therefore they want to give us a bunch of free nuts so that they get a bunch of cool photos out of young people eating nuts and enjoying it. What it costs them, it's going to cost them nuts. Usually you'll find that it's much easier to find product sponsors than it is to find money sponsors, because product sponsors, their products may cost, let's say, €3 a bag, but it's actually costing the company like 10 cents a bag. So it costs them much less to give you nuts than it would to buy those nuts. So if you think about kind of these elements when you're looking for partners and sponsors, it can actually help you realize that there are people you can approach where the cost to them is going to be much lower versus the benefit they're going to get from sponsoring you. Another example I can give for this, it's also food because I like food, but another example is that in a lot of the events that we used to organize in EYP Turkey, we would almost always have Starbucks sponsoring us, because they just wanted all the media exposure, all the photos we would post of young people enjoying Starbucks, and all it cost them is giving us a few gallons of coffee. So it was a very mutually beneficial relationship that we built. You want to think about how their communication is and what their sources of information are. If you're getting a sponsor, you want to think about, I think Melina also mentioned this, you want to think about what social media channels they're using. And then lastly, you want to deploy some analytical tools to help you assess their position. You may do a SWOT analysis if you're trying to find the most important sponsors for your event. Then you want to think about maybe how you'll choose one over the other. So Melina, can you go to the next one? Also, can you make me co-host, or rather, can you make the Ollie bot participant co-host? So to then think again about the types of stakeholders we have, the types of sponsors or partners we may get. This is like a very textbook graph of looking at it. So you can think of economic actors. That's going to be, I mean, in our case, not so relevant, but that's also people who will give you money. You can think about technological actors or political or sociocultural actors. We mostly work with sociocultural and political actors. So we invite, let's say, MEPs or local members of parliament to our events, or we have sociocultural actors where we want to invite, let's say, community leaders or specific communities to listen to us or to give us their insights. Then you have your different kind of relations with these actors and people who are within your industry. So in our case, it would be like EYP or people who work with EYP, or outsiders who are like experts and speakers and so on. And of course, you have your suppliers, people who give you money, products, and of course your buyers. In our case, we don't really have buyers. Our buyers would be our session participants who aren't buying but experiencing. But yeah. Can you go to the next one? So when we think about stakeholders and stakeholder analysis, it all sounds fancier than it is. You just draw a little arrow matrix thing like this. So imagine you with your organizing team, because you're working with a session, or you with your NC, with your team, you just brainstorm all the potential sponsors you can have, let's say. Then you can map them out on this little chart to think about, okay, so this sponsor will most strongly support our objective, and they will be the most powerful. So in our case with a sponsor, that would be something like Powershifts, actually, right? So Powershifts, they are the most influential because they're able to give us a good amount of support, whether financially or in terms of resources, but also they strongly support our objective, right? So they are strongly supporting the fact that we're discussing about climate change and renewable energies. So they would be at the top right of this chart. They would be our most ideal sponsor. But you can also think about sponsors that strongly support your objective, but are less influential. So the nut company may support that we're young people who like to snack. They're not going to be super influential, but they're still going to give us nuts. So you can map them out like this. You can map out your stakeholders in the sense that if you're trying to invite experts or even policymakers, nowadays we're getting more engaged with that, then this will be very useful for you to map it out. Can you go to the next one, Melina? Oh, yes, to the board. So to end this module slowly, I'm going to just, I want to do a short exercise with you. Yeah, we have 9 minutes.